It is my distinct honor to address you on behalf of the Republic of Serbia. I'm addressing you today as my country stands to protect the Dayton Peace Agreement, stands to protect peace and stability in the Balkans region, but also stands to protect the memory and the dignity of more than 100,000 victims of the bloody civil war in Bosnia and Herzegovina. All of these victims, regardless of their nationality, race, or religion, deserve equal justice, deserve equal treatment, and deserve equal remembrance and respect in front of the international community. My country has continuously and persistently supported the territorial integrity of Bosnia and Herzegovina, as well as the integrity and the competencies of both Republika Srpska and the Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina. At the same time, I want to speak out in defense of future generations who deserve so much better than being forced to man ideological or real trenches dug out for them by failures from previous generations, and who also deserve so much better than living in a system in which hatred and intolerance are being perpetuated ad nauseum and forcefully instilled in them. In the light of all of the bitterness that has filled this chamber again, I feel compelled to bow my head equally and unequivocally on behalf of the country I represent to all of the victims of the war in Bosnia and Herzegovina, regardless of their ethnicity, race, or religion. Now, having done so, I want to ask all those who proposed the untimely and uncoordinated draft resolution on Srebrenica to reflect deeply once again on their divisive initiative. The very fact that this resolution launched without consensus within Bosnia and Herzegovina, as we have heard from Her Excellency Željka Cvijanović, and in clear and blatant violation of its constitutional order, has, instead of reconciliation, caused the convening of an emergency Security Council session, should be sufficient for its initiators to withdraw the proposed text and go back to the drawing board. Madam President, esteemed colleagues, when assessing the extent of the possible threat posed by opening of unhealed wounds in this manner, let us recall that 35 years ago, one of the main triggers for the bloody breakup of the former Yugoslavia was the fact that irresponsible political leaders on all three sides, mere months before the first victims fell, started digging out bodies of victims from the Second World War, which at the time had happened 50 years before. The war in Bosnia and Herzegovina ended 29 years ago, but the degree of ethnic tensions already ignited within Bosnia and Herzegovina because of by the proposed resolution and due to the lack of both a transparent and inclusive drafting process and the balanced and mutually acceptable content is wreaking havoc in the country and amongst peoples that have suffered so much. All of this, in addition to the division it has created within the international community on a matter that should be both uniting and universally upheld. What has then caused such a negative reaction? Let me be very clear and very concrete. The proposed resolution on Srebrenica was drafted, proposed, and co-sponsored by the permanent representative of Bosnia and Herzegovina, without the legally required consent from the tripartite presidency of Bosnia and Herzegovina. On the contrary, this was done in almost complete secrecy, without consulting the Serbian entity within Bosnia and Herzegovina or its elected representatives, and without any attempt to acknowledge more than 100,000 other victims of the war that brought down former Yugoslavia. The resolution was drafted without any regional consultations, despite what basic respect amongst nations requires, as well as established good practice, as was the case with the Anga resolution on Rwanda genocide in 2003. Furthermore, Article 12 of the UN Charter clearly stipulates that matters being discussed by the UN Security Council should not be decided by the UNGA, making the proposed resolution a direct encroachment on the competencies of the UN Security Council. The resolution is narrow in scope and does not do justice to vast majority of the war's victims. Let me also be very clear. Republic of Serbia has continuously and consistently condemned all crimes of this tragic conflict, and particularly the Srebrenica massacre, horrific and standing out by its scale and cruelness. In 2010, the National Assembly of the Republic of Serbia adopted the declaration condemning the crime in Srebrenica. Senior officials of the Republic of Serbia, including 2 subsequent presidents, paid their respect to the victims at the Memorial Center in Potočari on several occasions and participated in commemorations at the UN in New York. The Republic of Serbia unequivocally and strongly condemns the denial of all the crimes in Bosnia and Herzegovina. However, I would like here to ask a simple question to those who initiated this resolution that doesn't acknowledge so many of the victims of horrific crimes that should be shameful for every human being. What are you going to tell the here present in this room, sisters Duška and Svetlana Stanić from Duvno, who were only 6 and 8 years old when they were tortured and abused in Raščani prison camp for the crime of being born as Serbs? Rajko Draganić, who came back from Brđani, Konjic municipality, with his daughter, only to find his wife and his parents slaughtered. What are you going to say to your citizens, dear representatives from Bosnia and Herzegovina, like here present Dušan Magazin from Živašnica, whose parents were killed while he was still very young? All these victims, are they less worthy of remembrance? For the families of many victims, it is still difficult for their voices to be heard and recognized. For 29 long years, they have been begging for the truth and justice, and we wanted to give these people an opportunity to share their testimonies at today's event, advocating equal justice for all Bosnia and Herzegovina victims, the only path to reconciliation. They best understand the pain of all the victims and their families, regardless of whether they are Bosniaks, Croats, or fellow Serbs. We need to bear in mind, I repeat, that equal justice for all Bosnia and Herzegovina war victims is the only path to lasting peace, stability, and reconciliation. Ladies and gentlemen, contrary to everything we are being told by some of the co-sponsors, the real reason for proposing this divisive and dangerous resolution has been revealed by Mr. Elmedin Konaković, the foreign minister of Bosnia and Herzegovina, who days ago publicly said, "Such a Serbia," I quote, "such a Serbia deserves nothing other than to be despised and does not deserve a hand of cooperation." End quote. He went on to proclaim in an offensive way that his ethno-nationalist regime intends to reopen judicial proceedings against my country and does not have reconciliation or good neighborly relations on its agenda. As we gather today to discuss these difficult issues, we must acknowledge the challenges of our past, yet choose a constructive path forward. Our region should be united not by the grievances of times gone by, but by our common goals for prosperity. It is imperative that we focus on nurturing talent and capturing new markets together. Just look at the staggering number of individuals leaving both entities in Bosnia and Herzegovina, especially from the Federation. This exodus raises a critical question. Who will remain if we persist in dredging up old wounds? Do you really think that so many of the war victims, if they could speak, would consent being trivially exploited for political purposes? Personally, I believe they would not desire our region to be shackled by a cycle of interethnic hatred under the guise of remembering the past. Would they be content to see their homeland stuck in bitterness, or would they prefer we honor their memory by building a peaceful future? This brings me to a poignant conversation I had yesterday with a foreign dignitary, one of the permanent representatives here at the UN. He expressed astonishment at our fixation on the past conflicts and rightly pointed out that healing is impossible if we continually reopen old wounds. He advised us to let the past rest and focus on the present and future. Therefore, I urge this Council to consider not just where we have been, but where we are headed. We must avoid the pitfalls that previous generations fell into. Let us not sow seeds of discord that could sprout in future generations. The war in former Yugoslavia began by exploiting long-standing grievances. This must not be our legacy. It is time to put aside resolutions that serve only to divide. Instead of digging out old graves and trenches, let us draft a new anger resolution that will have consensus within Bosnia and Herzegovina and the region. One that would lead us to the future reconciliation, collaboration, and friendship, development and prosperity, as our region holds the highest developmental potential in Europe. In conclusion, let us right away withdraw the divisive proposal of the resolution on Srebrenica and commit to a path of mutual respect and equal treatment of all victims. No more hierarchy of victims. No more revenge through political discourse. We owe it to our people and our children to forge a path of reconciliation and shared progress. To quote Archbishop Desmond Tutu, "There is no shortcut or simple prescription for healing the wounds and divisions of a society after prolonged violence. Creating a climate of trust and understanding between former enemies is an extremely difficult challenge to overcome. So, let us work together on overcoming this challenge. Let's give justice to everyone. Let's give time to heal the wounds. Let's reach a consensus on how to move beyond the divisions and ensure that painful past of our region does not and cannot happen ever again." Thank you.